call, call, check, check, bet, call, call, check, 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 check,
What am I doing? Watch out.
Check.
I got a knife, dog. I got a dog. I got it. You want to help?
bet,
You want to help? Huh?
Hold.
Are you trying to help?
call,
Yes, very good job, isn't it?
fold, raise, call, fold, call, check,
How many staples?
bet,
Oh, yeah, hundreds.
A million.
raise,
Maybe a lot more, too.
fold, call, check, 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 bet, call, fold, raise, call, 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 check, check, bet, fold, fold, call, check, bet, call, check, bet, call, fold, raise, fold, fold, call, fold, bet, call, check, bet, fold, fold, raise, call, call, fold, check, 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 Fold. Fold. Call. Call. Raise. Fold. Call. Call. Check. Check. Bet. Call. Call. Check. Check. Bet.
If you were going to build the ultimate poker table, what would it have? A chip tray, maybe a raised padded rail? How about some LED lights behind that? If you were going to do that, you might as well have some cup holders that are movable and can be positioned anywhere on the table. That way it doesn't matter if you're six-handed or 10-handed. And why not add a shuffler to it? That would make it the ultimate home poker game table, kind of like the ones you see on TV at the final table playing for $1 million. We're going to start with a big sheet of plywood. It's a 4 foot by 8 foot. We're going to use the full sheet. It's 3/4 inch thick.
Fold.
So you can see how thick that is.
Fold.
We're going to measure
Raise.
2 feet in from the
Fold.
edge, and then 2 feet in from this
Fold.
edge, and then 2 feet in from this edge. Find our center point, and we're going to use that
Check.
to draw our radius for our half circle. We went ahead and put a screw into the
Check.
wood, and this is going to be our
Check.
pivot point. We're using
Check. Bet. Call.
Now we're going to build a frame to attach to the
Raise.
table. We're going to use 2x3s.
Fold. Call. Call.
วันนี้มาเข้าฉากกิน แต่ไม่ต้องกินจริงนะครับ
ต้องค่ะพุ่มกับอยากให้สมจริง
Check.
กินแบบนี้อาจทำให้
แป
ท้
ด
องอืด
ใช้อีโนคลายกรดลดแน่นเฟ้อ
Call.
ฟูซิตริกแอซิดโซเดียมไบคาร์บอเนตโซเดียมคาร์บอเนตยาสามัญประจำบ้านอ่านคำเตือนในฉลากก่อนใช้ยาอีโน
Bet. Fold.
All right, so this is the box that we built. That's going to help keep the table nice and straight for years. And it's also going to make it so when we put in our lights and attach them, we can actually set this down on the ground if we're ever transporting it, and it's not going to hit any of the wires or anything. Went ahead and traced it, as you can see here,
Call.
and then we went ahead and put the frame on the bottom. What we're going to do now is, I know it's 13.5 inches from the edge of the frame to the edge of the board. Use our tape measure until we hit the board.
Bet. Call. Raise. Fold.
And we can see we're hitting the board there at 14, so we need to get this to 13.5. We need to scoot this down just about 1/4 of an inch. And we'll do this all the way around, and once we do that, we know that
Fold.
where we traced it lines up with the frame underneath, and we can screw straight down.
Call.
We also have our bases out. So we're going to put the table on top of the bases.
Call.
Now we got the table up
Call.
on top of the
Call.
base. We have to attach it. So now that we got them in place where we want them, we're going to come underneath, drill it with a
Call.
5/16 drill bit to fit a 5/16 carriage bolt that we're going to use to install it. So we're going to drill 4 holes into these big ones right here. So we're going to use carriage bolts to hold the base to the actual table. How these work is the little square, you're going to hammer that in to the wood. That's going to hold the bolt still. And what we're going to do is we're going to countersink it so this head sits flush with the top of the table with this here. And then we'll hammer this in. And before we do that, we're going to add some Gorilla Glue to make sure this bolt never comes out.
Fold. Call.
All right, so we're going to add a little bit of water here
Raise.
because the Gorilla Glue is actually cures
Fold.
when it's
Call.
mixed with the water. Just add some
Call.
of the Gorilla Glue directly to the bolt.
Check. Check. Bet. Call. All in. Fold.
see it's nice and flush with the table. We'll be able to put the felt right over top of that. The glue takes about 1 to 2 hours to kind of dry, about 24 hours to cure, and it expands about 3 times the amount that's poured out. So we'll go ahead and do all 8 bolts, and we'll move on to the next step after we get these bolts done. And you can see how the Gorilla Glue starts to foam up and expand, so that's going to help lock these bolts into place. Hex nuts hold it on the bottom. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get the shape cut out, and we're going to do that with a jigsaw, but it has like a small blade on there instead of the wide one. It's going to make it easier to go ahead and follow this curve.
Bet. All in. Call.
Alright, so now we went ahead and cut the shape out, took off this corner piece. We're actually going to take this corner piece here. We found our line for the middle. We line that up, that point up with the line in the middle. We came in 4 inches, and we're actually going to use this template to draw out the dealer cutout. Alright, now we got the dealer cutout going. And the Shuffle Tech shuffler actually comes with a template. So we went ahead and put the template down, drew our lines around it. We're going to use a jigsaw to cut it out, but to get started, we're going to use a hole saw and just drill near the edges so we can fit our jigsaw blade in it.
Bet.
Now we got the hole cut out for the Shuffle Tech. But one thing they put in the manual is you have to cut this off to make it a 45-degree angle on both short sides. So we got to cut this off at a 45-degree angle and cut this other short side off at a 45-degree angle to be able to fit the Shuffle Tech. So we're going to use an oscillating machine.
Call. Check. Bet.
2x4 that was underneath the actual dealer chip tray. We used a skill saw and plunge cut that all out there.
Call. Check. All in. Call.
Now what we're doing is working on the rail. This is going to be the bottom sheet for the rail. It's a 3/16 masonite. So what we're going to do is cut this out 6 inches wide all the way around, and we'll start with the bottom of our rail, then we'll build the middle, and then we'll put on the top. All right, here are the cutouts. That's going to be the start of the padded rail. This is the 3/16 inch. This is going to be on the bottom. We're actually going to wrap this with some cloth. Then we're going to put the ribs on top of it, and then after we're done that, we're going to put the plywood portion of it on top of that, and that's going to complete the rail, and we're going to go ahead and pad this. So now this is the cloth that we're going to put around the bottom of the armrest. Bottom of the rail wrapped up with the fabric. You can see how it's all the way wrapped on both sides. We did relief cuts in them to prevent the fabric from bunching up like this. So what we're going to do now is cut out some of these clumps of fabric, so when we put our ribs in, everything sits nice and flat. So we have our ribs for the armrest. We have 21 of these 1.5 inch boards, and we cut them 4 7/8 because the rail itself is 5 inches. So we actually want it to come and sit back about 1/8 of an inch, and then that's where we're going to rest our plexiglass, and that's going to hold our lights behind that. Here we have the plexiglass. This is 1/16 of an inch. So this is going to be able to bend around the rail and cover up the lights that we're going to put behind here. We're going to go ahead and cut this to 1.5 inches and it'll be the height of these blocks here. Plexiglass cut out to 1.5 inch strips, and then right before we install it, we're going to go ahead and take off the protective layer on the front and back. This is the 1/16 of an inch. You can see it's real flexible. We did a dry fit to make sure everything was going to fit like it was supposed to before we started attaching and gluing everything. Alright, so now you see we got the bottom panel done, and we did little relief cuts and used the Gorilla Glue to glue this all down. Now we're going to attach the ribs on top of here. Drill bit right there is going to be just big enough, so we'll go ahead and drill that right here on the end, and we'll be able to thread the LED lights through here. So we used the drill, and you can see how we notched it out. So that's going to be our support. We're going to put that on the table, and we're going to run the lights through it. So we're going to double check first, make sure these lights fit. Yep, and the lights fit perfectly in there. So now we'll go ahead and get all these drilled out, and then get them attached, all the ribs attached to this bottom part of the armrest, and then we'll go ahead and secure the top part. Clamp them down to the drill press. That way we can just push this in and then drill right in the exact same spot on every single one of these. And we have 21 in total.
แจกโอนลดเพิ่ม 50% ทุกวันที่ช้อปปี้ไลฟ์2 ทุ่มถึงเที่ยงคืน
call,
Alright, now that we got all of our ribs set up, we're going to do construction glue. We're using the Gorilla Glue, and we're basically going to glue all of these into place. We have our little gun here. We're just going to make sure that we glue it all the way to the back edge here.
call,
So then that way when we put our back edge on, it's flush. But we also want to make sure up on the front edge here, we leave that 1/8 of an inch to be able to rest our plexiglass on top of. And then you can see where we already have the cutouts to run the LEDs inside of. So you can see here we've come underneath the blocks that we have glued to the bottom piece, and we went ahead and marked them 2.5 inches in, since it's a 5-inch rail, and then 3/4 inch to get the actual middle. And what we did on the underside was
raise,
we trimmed out where the drill come through, so that way it doesn't snag the fabric and get all tangled up and then ruin the work we've already done. So we'll go ahead and drill all this out now. Alright, and to make sure we got all the holes perfectly straight going through, we used the drill press, and we used a little bit of a support to hold it up into place. So now all these holes are drilled perfectly straight. We're going to be able to put this back on the table, follow that same hole down, and then follow that same hole up to get through the top board. So all the holes will be perfectly straight up and down, so it won't be hard to pull this out when you have to pull out 21 screws to replace anything. This is the foam for the poker table. It's 1/4 inch thick foam. Now we got the foam all over, and we use the Gorilla spray adhesive to attach it, trim the sides using a razor blade. Got the table covered in the 1/4 inch foam. We went ahead and cut out our slot for our chip tray, and then for our shelf holder. So now what we got to do is we're going to put on the felt, and we'll go ahead and get it stapled. Alright, so you can see we're starting to cut out spots for the shuffler and for the chip rack. And all we did was just cut from corner to corner so these things can fold down, and now we're just going to bend them back over and staple them to the bottom.
call, bet, call, bet, call,
Alright, so now we got the holes drilled out and all 21 of the ribs, and what we did on that is we lined it up, put a little bit of paint on the end of a 1/4 inch drill on the back end, and dipped it through to find out
Fold.
where our mark was. And then we
Raise.
went ahead and cut out
Fold.
where the drill is going to go,
Call.
so it doesn't snag this material and wrap up
Bet.
into the drill bit and pretty much
Call.
destroy what we've done already.
Check.
Cut out holes for all this. So now we're going to put this back into place.
Bet. Fold.
We're going to clamp it, and then we're going to go ahead and drill straight down into it.
Fold. 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 Call.
All right, so now we'll go ahead and drill from the bottom and get this part done, and then we're going to put the carriage balls
Check.
and install it from the top
Check.
and put nuts on the bottom.
Bet.
To cover up the
Raise.
sides of the ribs, we're going to use oak paneling, and we simply attach that to the
Raise.
ribs. For the inside, we cut a 1/4-inch
Fold.
strip and attached it to the inside of the holes using Bondo, as you can see here in the corners, that reddish looking clay.
Fold.
That dries hard and holds it in place, and it's going to give us a flat surface to attach the LED lights to using their peel and stick feature.
Fold.
We also use the paneling on the outside of the ribs, and we had simply attached it using the construction
All in.
adhesive and screws, as you can see here. So we put a screw into all 21
in.
ribs. And to hide these screws,
Call.
we simply added a second layer of paneling, as you can see here, and we used more of the Gorilla construction adhesive to glue it together. And we used these clamps here to hold it in place for a few hours until everything was set. Now, this is the top of the armrest taken off, and you can see the 1/4 20 by 4-inch carriage bolts are all glued in there.
Call.
We use the Gorilla Glue to glue them all in.
Fold. Call.
What we're gonna do now is add our foam on top of our rail.
Raise.
Our rail width is 5 inches.
Call.
The foam is just under 7 inches. So
Call.
we're gonna put the whole thing
Call.
on and wrap it.
Check.
And it's gonna give us foam on the edges. So when people rest their arms, it's nice and comfy.
All in. Fold.
You're gonna pull this corner up, and you're gonna pull it as if you're gonna go straight
Call.
this way.
Fold.
And then find the corner right there. You're gonna fold that back that way, and then you're gonna fold it one more time on top like that. And that's gonna give you a nice
Fold.
clean corner like that.
Call.
And what we
Fold.
gotta do is we gotta
Raise.
take it step by step and staple it right there.
Fold.
We'll probably cut
Fold.
out some of this excess
Call.
material, staple it again, and then we'll staple it a third time
Bet.
without all this material in here.
Fold.
So it's just nice and flush on top of the poker table. Here's where you can see the oak
Fold.
panel used on the outside and then the
Call.
1/4-inch strip used on the inside, and that's what we attach the LED lights to. Now we're going to cover up the LEDs with plexiglass, but it's clear, so we need something
All
to cover
in.
that so we can hide the contents
Fold.
behind it. So we're going to use frosted privacy film. This is going to hide everything, but as you can see there with my fingers close up, you still can see the contents. So what we're going to
Fold.
use is white spray paint and do a light misting to cover it. Now you can see it looks like a white plain border, but when we turn the lights on, the color still shows through. All right, here we're getting to the end.
Call.
We have the shuffler flush mount kit in. We have the ribs. You can see how we ran the lights. We came up through a hole in the bottom, came through the side, and if you look in between, the lights ran down there. We have the plexiglass on the front. Then on the back end, we
Call.
have paneling that we cut to 2 3/4 inches. And now we're going to go ahead and get on padded rail. You can see all the staples underneath, carriage bolts, which are already glued in. We'll go ahead and get this on there now.
Call.
These are the washers and the nuts that hold the rail down.
Raise. Call. Call. Fold. All in.
The last thing we have to do is install the shuffler. It comes with the flush mount kit, which has this threaded rod that connects to this eye hook, which we already attached to the table, and then the threaded rod attaches to this bar that runs under the middle of the unit to another threaded rod on the other side. Once you tighten these 2 threaded rods, it pulls the unit up and holds it tight in place. Next, we went ahead and plugged the unit in to the power strip along with the LED lights. You can see the unit has a low profile and sits in the middle. Let's test the Shuffle Tech Shuffler with an unedited recording of it in action and the results of the shuffle. Is this thing worth the price?
Call.
All right, Max, the table's done. We're going to play some heads up, no limit today. And we're going to play for all the chicken. So that means if you don't win, you don't eat. You got that, puppy? Okay, let's shake on it. Give me paw. Okay. What do you mean you got to get ready for poker? Who gets ready for poker?
Fold. All in. Fold. Fold. Raise. Fold.
Shovel up the gear.
All in. Call. Fold. Raise. Call. Fold. All in. Fold. Call. Fold. Call. Fold. All in. Call. Call.
ลูกค้าบัญชีเงินเดือน TTB รับสินเชื่อดอกเบี้ยต่ำเริ่ม 7.99% ต่อปี
Adam Savage here from Tested in My Cave with a show and tell of a prop and a story. Now, what I've got in front of me here is roughly $100,000 worth of poker chips, fictional poker chips. These are actually my replicas of Teddy KGB's poker chips from the amazing gambling poker movie Rounders, starring Matt Damon and John Malkovich and Ed Norton. One of my favorite movies, arguably responsible for the late 90s, early 2000s poker boom, alongside an amazing episode of This American Life and some other New York Times stories that came out. I'm obsessed with Rounders, and I wanted a set of Teddy KGB's chips ever since I saw the movie. Now, they're expensive. If you want to buy them from the film production, they show up on eBay from time to time for like, 20 or 30 bucks a piece, like per chip. Well, I'm not going to spend that for a full set. So I carefully looked at screen grabs of the film over a period of time and logged that there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of chips, each with a different color of chip, a different color of pip, and a different number of pips. For instance, these $500 chips have 6 pips around the perimeter, where the $100 chips have 4 pips. I logged all this information and reached out to a poker chip company and said, could you make these chips for me? And they said no. And I reached out to another one a few weeks later and asked them, and they said no. And it started down this long journey of trying to find someone who could replicate these. And then I found this company, and I sent them the 5 different kinds of chips I wanted, and they said, seems like you want to make the chips from Rounders, which we built. What? I couldn't believe I'd actually found the company. Now, they don't want me to tell their name, so I'm sorry. I'm not going to share their name with you at their request.